6 statements in this video, 3 for maintains presence, 3 for listens actively. These two competencies blur for new mentor coaches because both involve attention. The cut is what the coach is doing with the attention. Presence is about staying with the client. Listening is about working with what the client says. Both require attention. They use it differently. Here's what I've noticed in mentor coaching sessions. Coaches who are strong on presence often score lower on listening because they hold the space well, but don't actively shape what the client said into something the client can use. Coaches who are strong on listening sometimes score lower on presence because they're so focused on the words they lose track of the person. Both competencies have to be there. Let's go statement by statement. Competency 5 is about how the coach holds attention across the whole session. The definition in the BARS document is fully conscious and present with the client, employing a style that is open, flexible, grounded, and confident. 3 statements. The first names a sustained quality, curiosity throughout. The second names a moment-by-moment behavior, acknowledging situations. The third names the willingness to let go of control. Read them as, I'm interested, I'm tracking, I'm not steering. The trap with C5 at ACC level is treating it as a vibe rather than a set of behaviors. C5 looks subjective. It isn't. Each statement has specific behavioral evidence the rater can point to. We'll go through what that evidence sounds like, one statement at a time. A5.1, the coach is curious throughout the session. Throughout is the operative word. Curiosity in moment 1 and curiosity in moment 40. Listen for questions that don't have answers loaded inside them. What else? What's behind that? What haven't we touched yet? What does that bring up? The coach who only gets curious in the first 10 minutes and then settles into telling has demonstrated curiosity, but not throughout. That's the discrimination. A5.1 fails when curiosity collapses into telling. The coach can recover. Some of the best A5.1 demonstrations come from coaches who notice themselves drifting into telling and pull back into questions. A5.2, the coach acknowledges situations that the client presents. The client describes a circumstance. My team isn't aligned. My deadline moved. My child's school called this morning. The coach lets the situation register before going to work on it. That's a lot at once. I hear the deadline shift mattered. Sounds like the morning had some weight before we even started. Acknowledgement is not agreement. It's not sympathy either. It's the coach saying, I heard the situation you described and I'm with you in it before we explore it. Compare that to a coach who immediately moves to, okay, what do you want to focus on? That's responsive, but not acknowledging. The situation didn't get to register. A5.2 requires a beat, even a small one, where the situation lands. Without that beat, the coach is processing. With it, the coach is present. A5.3, the coach allows the client to direct the conversation at least some of the time. This is the willingness to be steered. At least some of the time is the operational test. If the coach is the one choosing every transition, we'll talk about this for 10 minutes, then move to that, then close on this. The client never directs. If the client says, I want to back up, or let me try this from another angle, or actually that's not what's underneath this, and the coach goes there, that's directing. A coach who has a method they're walking the client through with no flex will fail this statement. It can also become a rail that doesn't allow client direction. A5.3 is what makes the coaching collaborative rather than scripted. Competency 6 is what the coach does with what they heard. The definition in the BARS document is focuses on what the client is and is not saying to fully understand what is being communicated in the context of the client's systems and to support client self-expression. 3 statements. The first is about confirming understanding. The second is about creating new associations. The third is about co-creating shared vision. Read them as a progression. Reflect, generate, integrate. Each one builds on the last. The coach who only does A6.1, reflective listening with checks, is doing the basic version of active listening. The coach who adds A6.2 starts shaping the client's understanding by surfacing patterns. The coach who layers in A6.3 is co-constructing where the client is heading. A6.1, the coach uses summarizing or paraphrasing to make sure they understood correctly. What I'm hearing is X. Is that right? Let me play this back. A, B, and C. Did I get it? So you're saying that Y matters more than Z even though you started with Z? Is that what you meant? The behavior is mirror with a check, not just a paraphrase floating in the air. A paraphrase that asks the client to confirm or correct. Without the check, A6.1 is incomplete. The coach who paraphrases without the check is essentially guessing what I think I heard, and the client doesn't get to confirm. The check is what makes the paraphrase a tool of mutual understanding rather than coach interpretation. Listen for the question mark in the paraphrase. If it's there, A6.1 is intact. If the paraphrase floats without seeking confirmation, the rater hears partial demonstration. A6.2, the coach makes observations that support the client in creating new associations. The coach notices a connection that the client hasn't named yet and puts it in front of them. Earlier, you said this was about your team. Now you're describing it as about your boundaries. Is that the same thing? The observation puts something in front of the client that lets them see their own situation differently. It's still the client's discovery. The coach is the one holding the mirror at a fresh angle. The hardest part of A6.2 is that the observation has to come from what the client said, not from the coach's interpretation, not from the coach's experience with similar clients. From the words the client used in this session, paired in a way the client hasn't yet paired them. That's the discipline. A6.1 and A6.2 get confused frequently. Here's the cut. A6.1 reflects what the client said back to confirm understanding. A6.2 names a pattern across what the client said to create a new association. Same coach, same client. The coach says, so you're worried about the deadline and the team's energy. That's A6.1, mirror, confirms understanding. Now the coach says, I'm noticing the deadline came up 4 times in our conversation and the team only came up when I asked. I wonder what that's about. That's A6.2. The coach is naming a pattern across multiple things the client said and putting it in front of the client as something to consider. Different behaviors, different ratings. A coach who only does A6.1 throughout will score sufficient on listening but not proficient. A coach who layers in A6.2 starts hitting proficient and above. A6.3. The coach co-creates a shared vision with the client. This is the integration move at the end of the listening competency. The client describes where they want to be. The coach and client together build a picture of what that looks like. When the team's aligned, what does a Tuesday morning meeting feel like? Walk me through it. If you've had the conversation with your CFO and it landed well, what's the next thing you'd do that you couldn't do before? The vision is shared because the coach is co-constructing it, not just receiving the client's account. It's also why A6.3 is C6, not C8. The action plan comes later. This is the picture, not the steps. Coaches sometimes confuse A6.3 with action planning. Action planning is A8.1. A6.3 is the picture of what success looks like before we get into how to get there. 6 statements covered. The big within competency discrimination is A6.1 versus A6.2. Mirror to confirm or observation to associate. Different behaviors, same competency. The other thing to take from this video, notice the C5 trap of treating presence as a vibe rather than a set of behaviors. Each C5 statement has specific behavioral evidence. Listen for it. That closes lesson 7.1B. In the next lesson, the last 2 competencies, evokes awareness and facilitates client growth. And then we discriminate the statements that span across competencies.